carry the mic around, to be honest with you. Yeah, so Coach, I'm at Vestavia Hills now. I was at Town before that. Before that, I spent a year out west at Mr. Foreman High School. Then a year before that, I was in Florida at Lakeland High School. And then before that, I was a grad assistant and played at North Alabama. Okay, so that's kind of my bio there. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about gas scheme fundamentals. I got a little bit nervous last night when Coach was talking about his power stuff. So you're going to see some of the same things, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I hope that you guys can get something from it. If I say anything that you have a question about, please interrupt me. I teach math every day, so I'm used to people interrupting me all the time, all right? So anything you got, let me know, all right? All right, so what is a gap scheme? All right, here's my definition of a gap scheme. Kind of like Coach yesterday wanted to define inside zone. Here's just my definition of gap scheme, okay? It's a run scheme where every lineman, besides any bullish, primary responsibility is to gap to their backside. So what does that mean? It means that any threat in my backside gap, so if it's a gap scheme to my right, any threat on my left, I've got it. Okay? Now, there's some variations of that. You go ahead, Coach. But why gap scheme? Okay? Coach, I got like a list here. All right, it allows linemen to be aggressive in their backside gaps and possibly work together in a tandem. So that's where we get our play side double teams at. All right, go ahead, creates a solid double team at the point of attack. Creates vertical movement at the point of attack. Now, I'm a vertical movement guy. Okay, there's some people that like horizontal movement. I'm a vertical movement guy. And I'll get into why. But I think it's actually my next point. It helps seal off level 2 defenders. We get vertical movement. It helps create a wall through the defense, which makes it difficult for linebackers to fit the correct gaps. If I get vertical movement on the play side, that linebacker has to make a decision. Is he going to play underneath that double team, or is he going to play over the top of that double team? Okay? Well, that gives me 50-50 odds that he fits it wrong. And I'll take 50-50 odds, right? And if you're running power or counter, you can get 1 or 2 to the play side. You're adding play side gaps. You're adding hacks to the play side. Okay? And that brings me to, in my opinion, just Coach David Lundberg's opinion, most of your explosive run plays are going to come from gap schemes. Okay? Now, I was talking with Coach Bailey last night. He's a huge wide zone guy. I like wide zone, outside zone. I think it's a great scheme. It's a very safe scheme. You should almost never have a negative play in your wide zone schemes. Okay? But in my opinion, most of your explosives are going to be from your gap scheme. And when I say explosive, I'm talking runs of 15 or more. Common gap schemes, this is all stuff that you guys know. Just to be thorough, you got your power, you got your GY or GH counter, depending on how you label your players in your offense. You got your GT counter, and you got duo. Okay? All right, so fundamentals of gap scheme. These are the things that I'm going to kind of break down and how I do things and how we try to do things at Vestavia. You got your play side double team, which is broken into 2 major parts: your flipper by your inside guy, and your square shuffle or your gallop technique. I don't teach the gallop quite the same as Coach does, so my gallop's a little different, so you're going to get a little different. It's not really a gallop. It's not like a high knee gallop. That's why I also kind of use the verbiage square shuffle. You got your pool. You got 2 major kinds of pools. You got a skip pool. I do teach an old school kind of skip pool. I've tried to do the sickle pool, and I'll tell you kind of why I didn't, why I went away from trying to do that when we get to the pool section of the presentation. And you got your down pool, which some people call your flat pool or your open pool. Your down block, okay? We work down blocks, okay? We actually work down blocks. If you've got, like a bare front or some sort of other, where you got 2 gaps consecutively filled, you got to do your down blocks on the play side. Okay? I feel like that's in my experience, that's an under-coached and under-taught part of the gap scheme family in any block. And then you got your static deal. I was actually talking with Coach Dye yesterday. We both played under the same offensive line coach, and we were kind of laughing at how verbiage that you learn and you pick up and just sticks with you. I was taught it as static deal. I've heard some people call it pick and hinge. I've heard some people call it B-gap hinge. I've heard it called all different kinds of things. I call it static deal, or I've got a bunch of other synonyms that I've picked up kind of along the way. All right, so the gap scheme double team. It's predicated by covered and uncovered gaps on the play side. All right, so if I'm the right guard and there's nobody in my inside gap, which is my primary responsibility, but there is somebody in the gap to my right, which is my play side gap, that allows me to now work in tandem and double team. Okay, so that's how we predicate a double team on the play side. We do have some tags that adjust this, but we double team to the second linebacker in the box. Period. That's how we rule it up for our gap scheme. Now, we do have some tags that change that, but that's how we teach it. We keep it simple, second linebacker in the box. Okay? And that's for all of our play side double teams. Like I said, we do have certain tags that adjust that, but base rules. All right, so we break this down into two major parts. You're either the inside man, which we're working a flipper technique, or you're the outside man working your square shuffle. All right, flipper. When do I use this technique? Okay. The biggest thing I see when I work my individual and it not carrying over to team situations is my kids don't know when they're supposed to apply certain techniques. They know how to do it, but they don't know when I'm asking them to do that technique. Okay, so that's something that I really evaluated on myself, and I tried to make sure that when we're doing something, we're not just doing a drill. I'm explaining, first of all, why we're doing it, and when are we using this technique, so they know. Okay, so when do I use this? When I'm the inside man on gap scheme double. Okay, my footwork, inside foot, settle step, outside foot's got to drive vertically through the crotch. That's very similar to what Coach taught yesterday. Okay, very similar. Coaching points. I want contact on my second step. Okay, we talk about it being a race to two. It's a race to 2 steps of contact. All right, we're going to win that race. We make contact with the top of our shoulder, and we violently throw our flipper and forearm through the defender. Okay, and then I want to block the body with block the knee lineman with my body, and I want to block my gap with my eyes. Because even though I'm working on this double team, my primary responsibility is still that gap to my inside. So I have to maintain that integrity, and I have to maintain my responsibility. If somebody that's not my predetermined man shows in that gap, my primary gap responsibility overrides everything else. Okay? I've got to maintain my gap integrity on the front side. All right, so we do a few things to work this. So the first thing we do here is we do a coiled 4-point explosion flipper drill. Okay, so we're going to be kind of like on our hands and knees, almost in a crawling position. We're going to try to coil our backside, our heels and our hips there, and we want to be flat back. Okay, we want to be flat back because that's how I want to come out of the stance later on. So I'm trying to get a feel for how this should feel through my hips and through my back and through my core and my upper body when I'm teaching this. Okay, so all we're going to do here is we're going to work violently through that shoulder. These guys are just putting a lot of pressure on that outside shoulder. So to give you context here, this guy on the right, DeAndre, it's like he's playing like a right guard. Okay, so that's his outside gap, and the guy's playing like a left guard. It could be a right tackle. It could even be a center with a guard, depending on how the scheme works out there. Okay, so they're just violently raising up through their backs. Okay, nothing revolutionary, but we'll just hit this and just try to get a feel for how we want to feel through our core and our hips. All right, now, settle drive footwork. Okay, some people teach near foot double teams. Okay, way back when I was in high school, I played in like a wing T style offense, and we taught near foot double teams. Okay, here's why I don't teach a near foot double team. Now, I don't want to take credit for this graphic. I was listening to I believe it was a Run the Power podcast, and they were talking about something similar, and they were like, oh, check this out on the website. I checked out the website, it has a great graphic. Okay, so I stole this graphic from the Run the Power guys. Okay, so no copyright infringement, but they do a great job, and so I found this. I wanted to include it because it's exactly why I teach it this way. All right, so if I step near foot, it actually opens up this hip to penetration. So if I open up that hip to penetration and he slants inside, my next course of action has to be turned. I don't want to do that. So if I step inside foot and just settle, any inside move I can now fight to stay square and stop penetration. Okay? So that's the main reason why we teach inside foot and settle step first, and then driving that second step vertical through the crotch. Okay? The second reason is that it helps align with the timing of the play. If I go bam, bam, 2 steps, that should give my tackle just enough time, or whoever my square shuffle guy is, to get there, and for us to get hip to hip and drive vertical through the double team. Okay? Okay, so now we're doing still a flipper progression, but we've incorporated our feet with it. Okay? So it's hard to see. They've got a medicine ball like locked in right here on their flipper. They're just holding it right here, and they're in like a stance position. So they're going to take their steps, and they're going to pop their hips and throw their flipper. That's all they're going to do. Okay? Not the best rep there. Okay, you got to see some guys coming up like this. That's not what I want to see. They all want to be violent with a forearm all the way through after I made contact with the top of the shoulder. Okay? So now, just like most of you guys, okay, I found that we look great in individual, and then when we get to team, everything we've talked about, everything we've drilled, everything I've tried to build into them, it just goes out the window and they do their own thing, right? Okay, so I try to ingrain it even more. Okay, we go flipper progression, we're working a flipper versus defender. Okay, I like to keep my guys on the lines when I can. Okay, sometimes I get cast out to no man's land and I don't have any lines on that part of the turf, right? Okay, but when I can, I like to keep myself on the line because I want vertical movement. It's an easy way for me to see if we're moving vertical. Okay, but right here, we're just going to work our first step. Okay, and what you're going to see on this clip is we do it rapid fire. Okay, so we're going to work our first step. We're going to go 6, bang, then we're going to reload it. Okay, so we're going to just keep reloading it over and over and over. We're going to get anywhere from like 6 to 10 reps right there, just drilling in that first step. Okay, okay, and I would like to see that we're getting a little bit too much, especially on the left here. We're getting a little too much vertical on that step. I really don't care if that step gains any ground. It's for timing and to protect the inside movement. I don't really care if it goes vertical at all. I don't want it to go inside. Okay? If I have to pick, I'll take vertical. But if you take a big vertical step here, your natural reaction is going to be to try to overcorrect, right? If I take a vertical step with this foot's going to naturally try to overcorrect, and that second step's going to probably be too big. Okay? So that's why I don't really want to get a lot of vertical movement on that first step. Okay, go ahead, Coach. So now we've done our first two. We've done our first step. We're going to progress to our first 2 steps, and we're going to make contact. Because we try to predicate almost everything we do off of contact on 2 steps. Go ahead, Coach. So we're doing the same thing. First 2, and then we're making contact. We're going to reload it. We're going to hit anywhere from 6 to 10 reps on this. Okay, I'd like to see the guy on the left there be a little lower. We don't want to make contact with our chest up. Not on this. We want to make contact with the top part of our shoulder pad. And we want to violently rip through to raise their pad leg. All right, now we've progressed into the whole block. Okay? So we're just working the flipper technique. Okay? Now, this drill is a little awkward, it's a little uncomfortable because you're only working part of the scheme here. This part is really not the part that's going to generate your movement, but it's going to start it. Okay, so it's a little difficult for these guys. If you got somebody that's really taking it seriously as a bag holder here, it's a little difficult for them to get movement here, and that's okay. That's not really the part. That's not really the job of this part of the block. This part is to get that guy raised up, to get his shoulders up, to be ready to be cleaned up by your outside guy coming in. Okay? But what I really want to see here is I want to see that low shoulder, I want to see that violent flipper, and I want to see good knee drive through the crotch of that defender. Okay? Now again, I've got them on the lines here so that I can see, are we staying vertical? Are we staying vertical? Okay, when I ask for these guys that are holding the pads, I want a ton of pressure on that shoulder. I want you to try to collapse that guy off that line, right? Because we've all had that double team that just gets washed laterally down the line and doesn't get any movement and doesn't get to the linebacker either, right? We don't want that. So I want a ton of pressure on that outside hip, trying to collapse that block. Okay? Now, what you're going to see in this clip is my guy on the left here. He actually does something that I don't want him to do. He works too much into that pressure and actually drifts back to the right of his double team. Okay, we don't want to do that. We want vertical movement. Go ahead. Okay, so my guy on the right too high, okay? He's a little too high, but that's how we should kind of look at the end of the block. I'd like to see him have a little bit more hip and knee bend and be kind of more in this range underneath him, okay? But if you do this properly, you're going to be kind of extended, okay? I don't want to be straight-legged, but as you can see also my guy on the left here, he's starting on what would that be, the 17, and he's going on the 16 now. So he's actually drifting a little back to the right, which really should never happen if this block's executed properly by the tackle as well. All right, so now I'm going to, when I call the square shuffle, I kind of use the gallop interchangeably, but like I said, it's not really the same gallop that you saw yesterday, okay? So the outside man on the gap ski double team, he square shuffles. Now, something that's different for me than some people, we will also square shuffle when we have an open B gap on the front side of the gap scheme. Okay? And I'll show you some clips of why we do that as well. But your footwork here, Coach Richardson from Velocity yesterday talked about drive catch. I'm a big drive catch guy, I'm a big OLP guy, I'm a big what Velocity teaches as well. We're going to drive off of that outside leg laterally to stay square. Okay, that's how we're going to do that. We want to stay square. Once we get hip to hip, I want to run. I want to run off the ball. Okay? Because if the inside man has done his job, that guy is raised up, he's vulnerable, his chest is up, his pads are up, and I want to literally sprint off the ball into that guy and get great movement. Okay? So here's a little bit of how we do that. So we'll go through our initial movement. Okay? I want to stay in great hip level, great leverage. Okay? Great hip level, great leverage, and I want to stay square. Okay? So we'll take one step, see if we can do that. Okay? So they're both a little higher than I would like them to be. Okay? Ideally, if we do this, I want to stay basically in my stance. Like, I want to be able to get here, and now I can use my hips as well, right? But we'll progress from that. So now we do the same drill, and we'll run off the ball. When I say run off the ball, right, I kind of mean O-line run. We're gonna try to put force through the ground. We're gonna have good pace. We're not gonna run like a sprinter, okay? But I want to run off the ball, okay? Go ahead, go. Okay, so I want, in my mind, if everything's worked out as it should, that guy's raised up, he's vulnerable, I'm getting there, and I'm running into that guy. I'm like a battering ram coming through trying to clean that up. All right, now we'll do it with the defender. Okay, again, our pad level, our hip levels are not where I would like them to be. Okay, but I hope we're getting the idea of what I'm looking for here. Okay? Go ahead, Coach. Now, let's watch my left tackle here, okay? So this is an odd one here. So he's got an open B gap. So he doesn't have a double team there. Okay, but we're gonna still square shuffle to stay square and account for any inside move here. So we're watching the left tackle over here. Go ahead, Coach. Okay, he gets an inside move. He stays square. It's not the best block in the world, but he absorbs that, and it allows us to be gap sound. That guy wants to be a B gap player. That's cool. I've got B gap. Let me take it. Okay. All right. So now we're watching the left tackle here. Okay. Now we're watching the left tackle. Okay. So very similar situation. Okay. He's got an open B gap, so he's going to square shuffle, and as we can see by their alignment, we'll show a little bit more later. Okay, he should be expecting the inside move here, right? I think it was Coach Lawrence yesterday with the inside zone called it the indicator, right? We can tell by the defensive alignment we're expecting some sort of inside move here by the defensive end. So he's kind of expecting it, but if he does not stay square, okay, he turns, okay, that allows two to play off the edge, and that's a problem. It's a problem for us. Go ahead. Now we're going to have an RPO off of this, okay? But if you line up and go. So there it is. That guy's coming down. We got the inside move. There we go. Right. So we had a lot going on in that play, but we're really trying to focus on that left tackle, just staying square. Could he have had better hip level? Yes. I don't have any perfect clips to show you. I wish I did. So I'm going to show you some clips, but focus on the guy that I'm trying to highlight doing a decent job and ignore all the bad stuff going on because there's going to be plenty of bad, all right? But him being square and climbing to the second level allows him to fit easier on a linebacker that's trying to scrape over the top. Okay? Some people call it a U-block. Some people call it, I've heard it called steering wheel, right? But it allows him to fit on that guy and redirect, where if he had turned his hips, that guy's going to go over the top, and we all know that this is never going to happen. We're never going to flip our hips and get back to it. So we want to stay square and climb that second level so we can collect in whichever direction we go. We can move laterally, but we can't turn nearly as easy as those guys can turn and run, right? So we're watching 61 here. He's going in square, he compromises his base a little bit, but does a decent job overall, and allows him to kind of steer wheel that guy and stay on it, right? Alright, so those are just pieces of the double team, right? So let's put it all together a little bit here. So we've got the gap scheme double team. Here's an example of like a right guard or right tackle putting it together in some drill work. Okay, I would like to see that tackle that's coming down. I would like to see a little bit more violent hands there. Okay, we talk all the time. We don't want to be hand placers. We don't want to place our hands on people. We want to strike people. Okay, so he comes down and he does a little bit of placing there. I'd like to see him really unload that thing. I try to explain to these guys that if the inside man does his job, this is as much of a cleanup job as you're going to ever have really in this game. Except for maybe if you catch a guy spinning late on pass protection, right? But we want these guys to fear our gap scheme double team. We want to strike them violently with our hands and run them off the ball. So here's an example like a left guard and a left tackle. Okay, again, just a little bit hand placing. Okay, here my left guard does a really good job of making that block go vertical. Okay, and some of you might be asking, where's the linebacker? I very rarely use linebackers in my individual groups. Very rarely. Because if we handle that guy, we're gaining 4 more. I truly believe it. Now, I'm still going to yell at them when we don't get the linebacker. They know the linebacker's over there, and every now and then we will implement a linebacker. So my emphasis is on the defensive line. If we block the defensive lineman, we should have positive plays. And I think Coach Lawrence said yesterday, I need to keep my job. Right? We don't block the lineman, I'm filing unemployment. You know what I mean? So I don't have a lot of linebackers in my individual group. I'm focused on the defensive line for the most part. All right, so here's a center and a guard. This might happen when you're playing like an odd front, or just different tags you might have. It doesn't happen a whole lot for us, but everybody is still able to do everything, right? So the center is able to throw a flipper, and the guard is still able to square shot, right? And the center can throw a flipper from either direction. Now, a variation of this I will have sometimes. If I'm playing like a true stack team, we might do more of like a double team like what Coach showed you yesterday, where I'm going to bang that hip and try to climb vertical, because that double team's got to happen faster, right? We might call up, we might add a tag to our double team, where we have like a ricochet tag, right? Where I've got to ricochet fast instead of driving that thing vertical. So we will work some of that, but that's not how we want to make our money. We want to make our money driving guys vertically off the ball. All right, so left guard to left tackle here. Okay, so we've got a gap scheme double team. Okay, now, just like every time we do something good, the quarterback throws the ball somewhere else, right? So we've got an RPO tag on this. But we get a decent gap scheme double team here, and really good job on the left guard. Does a good job of driving a high knee. Obviously, things can be better, but let's go ahead and watch it. Okay. Now, the ball gets thrown pretty quick. So now, but you see it for just a second, he gets that knee in there, right? Right? Bam, there. See, he's trying to drive that knee vertical through that, right? Now, that second vertical step is very, very important. Now, it's tied to your first step. Most of our problems go back to a poor first step. Okay? They go back to a poor first step. If we take a poor first step, our second step is going to usually naturally try to correct what we did wrong on our first step. Okay? So So we spend a lot of time working first step, second step, progression, okay? So what you'll see, why I don't want that step to go inside, right, if I'm the right guard right there, if that step goes inside, we'll see an issue of this step trying to naturally do what? Come with it, right? So that's what I call getting skinny or avoiding the block. We don't want to avoid. We want to drive that outside leg straight through his crotch. Straight through his crotch, straight through his crotch. We don't want to get skinny around that block. We don't want to avoid it. Okay? It's human nature to try to avoid conflict, right? It's human nature to seek the path of least resistance. Okay, but we can't do that. Okay, we've got to make that flip work. All right, so eyes on the left guard and left tackle again. I apologize, it's a little grainy here, but left guard and left tackle again. Left tackle does a good job of coming in square and getting some movement. Okay, get some decent movement. And really, guys, I would love to say that we're big, strong, powerful guys, and we drive guys 6 hours off ball. It happens sometimes, but realistically, guys, I need 2 yards, 3 yards of movement, and we can live with that. Okay? If we can get that, we're putting that linebacker where I feel like in a bind, and he's getting guys near his lap, and he doesn't like that. Okay? So we do a good job generating movement. He could have been a little lower there, but it wasn't bad overall. All right, so right guard, right tackle here. Okay? We'd like to see the right guard be able to stay on it a little longer. Okay, but if the tackle comes in violently and kind of knocks him off the block, okay, that's fine. We get to our linebacker. Now it gets all muddled up and not a very good play overall, but the right guard did a good job of just getting that shoulder turn, getting that pad level up, and putting that defensive lineman in time. All right, skip pull. All right, so when am I skip pulling? Okay, I'm skip pulling when I'm on the back side of a gap scheme, and I'm pulling for a second level defender on the play side. That's what I'm going to skip pull. Okay, and we always skip pull for the first linebacker in the box. Again, we have tags that change that, right? But that's how we base school all of our gap schemes up. If I'm the skip puller, I'm for the first linebacker in the box. Okay? Drive off the inside leg and try to simultaneously stack my outside foot behind my inside foot. Now, it looks goofy. Okay? It does. In my experience, it's what's worked best for me and most of the guys that I coach. Okay? I've tried to coach the sickle pool and kind of that shuffle pool before, and it didn't work for me. Okay? Ultimately, why it didn't work for me is because most of the time I don't have big, powerful guys. I've got a bunch of kids that work really, really hard and do what I ask them to do, but I don't have the guy that's a human battering ram. Okay? I wish I did, but I usually don't. Okay? So I felt like I was losing some of my fun on my gap scheme stuff. Okay? Like Coach said yesterday, it's an attitude, it's a mindset. I want to come through there with bad intentions. Okay? And I felt like I was losing some of that with that simple pool, kind of slowed down pool. Okay? So that's why I don't teach it. Do I think it's great? Yes, I tried it. I wish we could do it. In my experience, it just doesn't work for us. Right? So now, coaching points here, you have to stay square. Staying square and getting depth are the two things I say continually. I'll say skip pull, get more depth. Stay square. Okay? Those two things are the quickest things to mess yourself up. If you don't get enough depth, in my opinion, you can't see where you fit. I don't care about width. If I get depth, I can see where I can fit and I can adjust. And if I don't stay square, I'm going to naturally drift. I'm going to drift wider than I want to be. Okay? We want to stay as tight as we can to the A-gap. Okay? I got fired up listening to Cook talk about his power yesterday. We are firm believers in A-gap gap schemes. Okay? Now, can they hit backside? Can they bounce? Yes. Okay? Sometimes they hit wider than the A-gap, of course. Okay? But we want to be as tight to the A-gap as we can. All right? Go ahead, Coach. All right, so again, first step, okay? So it's kind of hard to imagine if you've never taught it this way. When my guy on the left, he's going to drive really hard. Okay, now, the other thing you're going to notice is these guys are flipped, right? My right side guys on the left side of this drill, and my left side guys on the right of this drill. Okay? That's so they can skip and not hit each other. Okay? Now, my left side guy, which is really my right tackle, over here, the bigger guy in all range. We need to check our wardrobe so I can describe him a little better. He's going to push off that left leg, and he's going to try to stack that right foot behind his left leg. Okay? And then the guy on the right side is going to try to do the same thing, just near. Go ahead, go. Okay? So they're just landing, right? Okay? So if I'm trying to demonstrate, okay, I'm trying to push off this left leg and land on this right leg behind me. Okay, that's all I'm trying to accomplish right there. Go ahead. Okay, so now, this is the same thing. Go ahead. It's just another slide of the same thing. Okay, trying to get a lot of depth. Right, I like to use the sideline on this when I can, because I can get a decent measure of how much depth we're getting there. Right, I can get a decent measure of how much depth I'm getting there. I like to use the sideline when I can, because now I have to set up cones. I have the yard lines as indicators. Right, it's just less time that I'm spending setting something up, the more time I can be getting around. Okay. Okay, now, okay, so we like to be tight, right? So we overemphasize that in our drill work, because kind of like Coach said yesterday, he said, you know, if I tell them to hit an IT band, they hit the hip, right? Well, if I tell them to be this tight, maybe they'll actually fit where I want them to be, right? They're going to naturally be a little off, okay? It's just human nature. So I overemphasize trying to be tight. So now, when we land, our second foot, bam, we're square, we're running vertical. We're running vertical. When we get closer to contact, we should be widening our base and kind of lowering our hip level again. But we want to be a battering right through that. Okay? So bam, land, square, now we're running vertical. And we want to fit inside out on the second level at all costs. Inside out on the second level at all costs. I don't care if you block the guy. If you're not inside out, you're wrong. You could have been inside out. We got to be inside out. Because just like Coach said, we want to eliminate that extra fit. Okay? We truly believe that a lot of the things defenses like to do are eliminated by keeping that scheme as tight as possible. We truly believe that. Okay? Go ahead, Coach. This is it again. Okay? Get a little more depth. Okay? I'd like you to just be a little more inside out. Okay? And we talk about that all the time too. Being inside out. Guys, you're going to see I've actually got a few clips on here. When we get to our counter pull, it's kind of the same idea. It's really just a second level kick, right? Making him fit outside. Okay? If you make him avoid out, works for me. Right? If everything else is done like it's supposed to, if he avoids outside, kind of obeys you, I'll take that most of the time. Okay? Go ahead, Coach. All right, so I was on the right guard. He could be tighter, but overall it's a good job. He gets enough depth. He stays tight enough. He stays square. That equals the linebacker sitting outside. Okay, he barely touched it, right? So what did the linebacker do? He got over the top, get outside, we hit it up underneath, right? Now that was your little shovel pass, still a gap scheme for us up front. All of our gap scheme rules were intact. That's why he didn't touch the defensive end, because he knows he's skip pulling. He knows when I'm skip pulling, I'm not blocking a first level defender. Right? Now if that guy crashed in and was in his path, he'd be forced to take him because that would violate his gap rules, right? But if he's wide, I'm not going to chase that. We know that we're skip pulling for a second level defender. Okay, eyes on the right guard. Ideally, we want this play to hit tighter, right? But you can see we're in some 21 personnel. So anytime you add gaps, you're probably naturally going to get hit a little wider. Okay? So we want this play to hit tighter. The right guard gets depth. Okay? And now he's not going to fit inside out here, but he's about as tight as he can be. And that linebacker straight over the top right into it. Go ahead, Coach. Bam, right there, fits right into it. Okay? Now, and that running back did a pretty good job of being as tight as he could to all those down blocks. What did that safety do? Safety was too wide. Couldn't make the play. All right, so now look at the left guard here. Okay? I'll tell you a little story really quick about my guys. Earlier in this same game, okay, this same player, you know, everybody's got, well, all the high school guys have probably got the sideline technology right there watching on the field. You know, I'm over there and I'm mad because we have a gap scheme where he skip pulls and he's too wide and the backer spills him inside and it's a gain of 3 and it should have been a touchdown, right? Okay, and in the heat of the moment, I got mad and I said, what's wrong, man? You hate touchdowns or something? Something to that effect. My kids never let me forget it. Now they say it all the time, right? But if we come back, and the next time we run power, we can pull in this and that. Okay, and also I want to point out, it's a good job on the right tackle using the square shuffle technique. Stiff pull, inside out, as tight as possible, touchdown, right? Okay, so really good job by that young man being coachable, believing in what we teach and taking it into the field from the sideline and making a correction. Counter pool. Okay? Again, some people call this an open pool, some people call it a flat pool, I call it counter pool. Okay? It's when you're pulling from the back side of the gap scheme to the front side, you're responsible for a first level defender. Okay? Which is usually going to be the end man on the line scrimmage. Okay? We don't do a whole lot of trap, so for us, this pretty much encompasses when we're going to use it. Okay? Again, going back to kind of what velocity teaches and some OLP fundamentals, to me, movement is all the same, right? It's just applied at different angles, right? So even when I'm counter pulling, I'm still just driving off this leg, right? I'm still using the same kind of muscle memory, the same movement, okay, as normal. So I'm driving off that backside leg, and I'm gaining ground into the line of scrimmage to kick the defender, right? We all know what a kick is, but that's when we fit inside out and make the defender play up the field, right? Okay? Coaching points. We work into the line of scrimmage. We want to get our eyes on our edge gap, okay, to adjust our path as needed. But we can always start tight, and when I call kind of banana out, if we have to, kind of make that banana shape, right? But you can never start wide and get back in tight. It almost never happens, okay? We want to start tight and we'll adjust as we can. Accelerate through contact. Accelerate through contact. Kick at all costs, guys. Just like we're inside out at all costs, we kick at all costs. We do not use the word block. We do not. What I have found, and what other people have found, and I've talked about it with other guys, if you're as tight as possible and accelerate through contact, you're going to naturally log a guy anyway. It's just going to naturally happen. Okay? Even when that does happen, okay, I'll use the phrase that I say, bury him into the line of scrimmage. So if I hit that outside half because I wasn't tight enough, I'm going to bury him into the line of scrimmage. Okay? And if no extra is there for some reason, we're going to wrap as tight as possible and we'll just be a +1 fitter to the linebacker. Okay? What's most likely to happen there if they've done some sort of gap exchange where they've taken my tackle or my guard or my tight end or whoever was responsible for climbing to the second level, they've taken his gap. Okay? So we'll make him right by fitting on the second level there. Okay? Okay, I don't have a whole lot of fancy drills for this. Okay? We're on the sideline. You can see that I've got those blue pads there. They're angled and they're up from where they're starting, right? So that's where you work into the line of scrimmage. Okay? I want you, if you can, to scrape those guys a little bit while you're running by. I tell them all the time, don't adjust your path because people are in your way. I'm going to yell at them for being in your way. I'm not going to yell at you for running into them. Okay? You do your job, let them do theirs. Don't not do yours because they weren't doing theirs either. Makes no sense, right? Okay, so that's what I tell my guys. If you're pulling and you run into somebody's hip because they're getting driven in the backfield, I'll try to fix that problem. Don't make me fix 2 problems by you changing your path. Okay? Alright, so now we're going to pull into the line of scrimmage. Should be scraping. Eyes on the edge gap, adjust path as needed. Again, we don't use the word block, we kick at all costs. Go ahead, Coach. Okay, not a bad job there. I think I got another one of this, Coach. Okay, now, the hardest thing for me to get these guys to do is to understand that the block is not the finish line. Contact is not the finish line. Okay? I want to accelerate through this block. Okay? I want to Michael or blindside this guy all the way to the sideline. Okay? It's the hardest thing we preach, but it's still hard for these guys to do. Okay, so we want to accelerate through contact. Go ahead, Coach. Okay, so we're accelerating through contact. I'd love to see us be a little bit lower with our hips, be a little bit more vital with our hands and shoulders. Okay, but we don't have any protection there except for the pads, so I didn't fuss out too much. All right, so eyes on our right tackle. Now, we pull everybody except for the center. And sometimes we pull center if we feel like it gives us an advantage, but we try not to. Okay? Our guards and tackles will both skip full and counter. They both do everything. Okay? So that makes my individual easy. Everybody's doing everything. Okay? I really need to make the center do it just so it's not something they've never done before. Okay? Now, we all know, right? We all know how it works. How many people in here have 10 guys that really can line up and play today? Right? How many have maybe 7? Right? So if somebody goes down and they just slide in the second guy, it's move him here, slide this guy here. You're always moving chess pieces, right? So everybody's got to be able to do everything. All right? So anyway, eyes on the right tackle. Ideally, we want them to be a little tighter. We've got a little bit of penetration. Okay? Does a decent job. He can be tighter, but we get a kick and get a decent play there. All right, eyes on the right guard. Decent job of getting the kick. We'd like him to stay balanced and stay engaged in the block. We talked about this a little bit. He makes the defender kind of overweight him. Kick. If everything else happens as it should, that guy's not making a play. Okay? Kind of overlays him, right? The quarterback doesn't trip the ball. We got a positive play. All right, eyes on the right guard here. A really good job working back into the line of scrimmage to get a kick. A really good job. He continues to climb as the play goes on, and he does a really good job to get on that inside half and get a kick. Okay? Again, luckily we still score here, but again, we do something right, quarterback throws the ball away, and we don't get to see it happen. All right? So, all right, eyes on the right guard here. This is really grainy. I apologize for that, but we're watching the right guard here. He needs to do a better job of maintaining his leverage, his hip level, his pad level. But does a good job getting the kick overall. And we get a pretty good double team by the left guard and left tackle here. Okay? The kick happens a little tighter, kind of messed up our H back there. Okay, or it would have been a really, really positive play because we had a lot of vertical movement on that double team. Okay, go ahead, coach. This is that same play just from the wide. Okay, you'll see the good double team. You'll see a pretty solid start to his path. Could be tighter. Could be tighter, but the last minute that guy kind of gets upfield, so he kind of bananas to him there. All right, down blocks. Okay, I don't feel like most people work down blocks enough. Okay? And why we work down blocks is because the number one thing that kills our gap schemes is penetration. Because it picks off our pullers and it messes up the timing of our play. Okay? So we want to be really good at down blocking. Are we really good at down blocking? Sometimes. Okay? Sometimes we're not. Okay? Again, we want to drive off the outside leg and we want to aim at the crotch of the defender. Oh, sorry. When do we use a down block? Okay? We use a down block when my backside gap and my play side gap are both covered. Okay, that's the type of situation where we're going to have a down block, right? So the most common that we're going to see is probably a bare front. If I'm the right guard and I've got a bare front, well, that knows he could be an A-gap player, so I've got him down. Okay? That 3, he's a B-gap player most likely, so that tackle's got down. So we're all going to trigger down blocks there, right? That's pretty commonplace. Okay? We want to punch hand, inside hand to sternum, outside hand to hip. We want to drive our helmet into the V of the neck. Okay? Now, I want to get my helmet there, but I don't use my helmet as a teaching tool. I don't say drive your helmet into the V of the neck. Okay? I want to make contact with my hands first. I want the shot to be from my hands, and then I want to fit my helmet and body there to prevent any up the field penetration. Okay, so again, we'll work the first step over and over. Rapid fire, reloading. Aiming at the crotch. My guy on the left here is probably a little flatter. Probably just a little flatter. Okay? And this is something that's kind of an art to me. Okay? If your step's too flat, he's over the top. If your step's not flat enough, he's in your gap. Okay? Sometimes it's kind of like Goldilocks, right? You gotta find the right chords. Okay? You want to be too hot, too cold? Okay, that's why we try to work them. Try to give them different variations, different angles, right? We talked about angles yesterday, okay? Because, again, if they're not exposed to this, it's really easy for me to get mad and say, man, you had a down block there with a to down block a 4-eye. I've never worked them trying to down block a tight 3, and if the situation calls for a down block. Okay, so I try to give them all those variations, working one step. Okay, so now we'll go to the next one, and now we're doing 2 steps and hands, right? 2 steps and hands, the race of 2 steps. Okay, again, my guy on the left here could probably get a little more lateral here. My guy on the right might be getting a little too lateral. Okay, I'm getting a little too lateral. Okay. Now, we'll work the whole block. So again, I want to be violent with my hands. I'm aiming for that hip. From now on, actually, now we're aiming for the IT band. Still that from coach yesterday. Okay? And now we're aiming for that IT band. So we'll actually hit the hip. I got a bunch of kids that have sore ribs. I don't have anybody that's got sore hips. So now we're aiming for the IT band. Still that from yesterday. Ready for go back up. You stepping at the crotch, punching that hand to sternum, trying to get my hat inside. We talk velocity, and again, going back to some of the OLP stuff. Okay, when I get into this down block, I want positive shin angles. When we get triggered into that down block, it's exactly what it sounds like. Vertical movement is no more. We're trying to down him. We're trying to get him laterally, horizontally out of the play. Okay? So now I want my shin angles to be pointed down. I'm moving him this way. All my force will go down. Okay? It's a completely different mindset once we get triggered into down blocks. Okay? So that goes. And now I've got the guy on the left side here. Now before we play this, he does something here, and it's because he also plays some center for me. We talk about it when we back block on the center. To me, that's really just a down block. Okay? It just might be a little wide because it's a 3 technique. Okay? But you're going to see him take his left arm, and he's going to have what we call strong play side hand, strong play side hip. You're going to see him take that left arm, and he's going to throw it and throw his hip. Because now he's going to make that guy play underneath. He's not going back over the top to get the play. Oh, maybe he won't. You see him kind of take that hand and that hip, and he's working it vertically up the field to where he cannot play over the top. Okay? I fight it with my guys all the time. I'm sure you do the same. It's human nature when you feel pressure to do what? To go with that pressure, right? You probably see it in your pass protection all the time, right? Get pressure on the outside hip, what do they want to do? They want to turn, right? We tell them to do the opposite, right? So when I put pressure on that defensive lineman's hip, my hope is that he falls into what? Human nature. He's just going to turn and go the other way, which is exactly what I want him to do. Okay? All right, so looking at my center, my right guard, my right tackle. Center, right guard, right tackle. Go ahead, coach. All right, good hand placement. Steps could be better, feet could be better. Good hand placement allows him to get some good down blocks. Of course, we throw it out there. I mean, it's a positive play, but we get some good down blocks on the throw, of course. Okay? All right, eyes on the whole left side. Okay, eyes on the whole left side here. You do a great job. And again, we talk about at this point, we trigger down blocks. We want lateral, horizontal movement. Get them out of there. Get them out of there. Let's make an 8-foot hole. Okay? If we can't get vertical movement, we want that hole as wide as possible. Okay? So there goes. All right, now I call it stab and peel. Some people call it different things. Okay? When do I use this? On the back side of the gap ski. Okay? If I've got a guy inside of me that's pulling. Okay? Again, drive. I try to avoid saying step inside. Sometimes I do, old habits die hard. But everything I try to talk about driving. How am I driving? How am I getting there, right? So drive off the outside leg laterally to take the inside gap, then we'll peel back to our outside gap. Okay? The primary responsibility is the inside gap. You may say, Coach, why? It's a gap scheme. He's supposed to have the gap through his backside. Well, he's replacing who? He's helping replace that puller. So he's helping replace that puller's gap, which is that gap inside of him, right? So now, he cannot allow penetration. He may have to get some depth on the peel. He cannot peel if no help comes back to that guy. If something happens and the center can't get back to him, he can't peel. His inside gap is most important. He cannot peel if no help comes. So we'll stab here, and something that we try to do, we don't always do a great job at it, but it's a 3 technique especially. I want that guy to feel me. Okay, I don't want to just go down there and play freeze tag with him. Okay? I want to get in there and body him up so there's no backside penetration right there. And then if I do my job, I can get some vertical depth on that, and that defensive end, really, I just got to get a shove on him each and every end. Okay, go ahead. Okay, kind of hot there. I'd like to see our feet be a little bit better. Okay, go ahead, go. Okay, now, he's got an open B gap. So I'm going to still stab behind that backer. Okay, but it's got to happen fast if that backer wants to be in a play. So really, I should know with one, maybe two. If that backer is trying to be a B gap player, and then I can kill him. Right, the backer kind of flat foots it like he's reading the pulling guard or something, so I can peel him. There you go, coach. Now, we've got an open B gap again. We've got to have some football intelligence here, okay? Some football intelligence. If there's a one technique or an A gap defender, the center can't get back to a B gap defender, right? So if that guy's a blitzer of any type, I got to take him. I got to take him through the field. Turn the watch no loose, right? So that's what we're simulating right here. And again, I don't have the whole group here, but I try to make sure they understand the situation that we're working right here. There's a one technique right here. There's an open B gap. You're checking that back. Can the center get back to this guy if he blitzes? No. We've got to get him. I do. Perfect. Let's go. Okay, screw the field. Screw the field. If that guy puts a B gap, that guy, if they're playing sound defense, he should be contained anyway. Right? So let him be contained. Ball shouldn't be over there. All right, so center, left tackle, left guard. We get some good down blocks there. The right guard, right tackle does a good job of securing that inside gap and then peeling on the side of the field. Okay? That's it. We don't think that the peel aspect of that block has to be supervised. It's really about just keeping him wide out of the play. All right, now for the right tackle here, he's going to do a really good job of making that guy feel him, making him aware that he's there. Bam, gets into him, does a really good job. All right, overall, guys, we want our gap schemes to be tight to the A gap. We just believe that solves a lot of problems for us. Okay? We believe in our base rules and fundamentals, how we teach things, account for pretty much most things that a sound defense can throw at us, right? Everybody's been there sometimes where defense accidentally double gaps you, and the coach says, or kid says, Coach, what do I do? Man, like, I'm not going to coach you, to correct yourself against, a guy messing up, right? So if they're sound, we believe that we've covered pretty much everything that they can do to us. All right? We also believe that these fundamentals have a lot of carryover to other schemes if needed, right? A lot of people do this now. They teach, the backside of zone, very similar to the front side of the gap scheme, right? So we think there's carryover there. Okay, and then the other thing I hit on, I teach pretty much all movement the same idea, right? If I'm pass set, it's almost the exact same idea as if I'm square shuffling. I'm just applying that force in a different direction. Okay, so I think that movement principles carry over. I wouldn't say these are all everyday drills, right? But it's all stuff that I work very often. Because when you get fatigued, the first thing to deteriorate is your technique, it's your fundamentals. Okay? So you've got to build that in, like Coach said from Velocity yesterday. You've got to ingrain that into them, you've got to build that into them. That's their base operating system. Okay? Because if not, fatigue will be the first thing to deteriorate those skills and those fundamentals. Now, kind of my disclaimer, right? This is just how we do it. There's definitely more than one way to do it. Coach showed a great way that they're having success up at Bryant. But this is just how we do it. This is how we teach it. So take it all with a grain of salt, okay? Now, before I open up for any questions, I know I'm right at my time here. I do want to thank Coach Bailey for putting this together. I've had a great time. I want to thank you guys for letting nobody like me come up here and take an hour of your life that you'll never get back. But I was talking with some of these guys last night at the social and just around this thing. I truly believe that we, as offensive line coaches, have the best community in all the schools. Okay? There's no ego in this room. There's no ego in offensive line play. And maybe that's the nature of the position. I don't know. I like to think of myself, I'm just a regular guy that really loves coaching offensive line. That's my personal cell phone number. I've had the same cell phone number since I was in 7th grade. So if you had my number in about 2004, you still got it. Okay? But there it is. So hit me up, guys, anytime. That's my personal email. That's my school email. I should have put my Twitter on there. I'm on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I don't know what other social media exists, but I'm not on that either. I'm only on Twitter. And I'll do a quick little shameless plug here. Coach Atkins and I, every Thursday night, we run the Alabama football chat. It's not just for Alabama coaches, but we would love for any of you guys to join us on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Central. We usually get, what would you say, Coach, anywhere from 10 to 20 plus coaches on any given Thursday night, just talking various things. But anyways, you guys have any questions for me? I know I'm right at my time. I don't want to run into the next time slot. But I could stay up here all day. Honestly, I was worried about filling up an hour, and now I wish I had another hour to dive into more stuff with you guys. But any questions for me? Or to use my teacher PE training, what questions do you have? Because I know you have questions. All right, I did a really good job. Are you ready for me to get off stage? So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.